The law office of Henderson and Associates looked exactly like you'd expect for a firm handling old money estates, mahogany panels and leather chairs that probably cost more than my car. I sat there, surrounded by family members who hadn't bothered to call me once during Grandpa's final months, watching them perform their well-rehearsed grief. My cousin Rachel, dressed in designer black that somehow managed to look both mournful and fashionable, kept shooting me calculated glances. I'd learned to read those looks growing up. They usually preceded some scheme where she'd end up with everything while I got the blame. "Before we begin," Mr. Henderson said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses, "Mr. Richardson wanted me to play this video first." My heart clenched. Grandpa had spent his last year obsessively recording videos, insisting I help him organize them. "For posterity," he'd said with that knowing twinkle in his eye. I was the only one who visited regularly, the only one who'd helped him with his mysterious video project. The screen flickered to life, showing Grandpa in his study, looking tired but determined. "If you're watching this, I'm gone. But before Robert reads my will, there are things you need to know." Rachel shifted uncomfortably. Her mother, my Aunt Patricia, gripped her designer handbag tighter. "I've spent 50 years building this portfolio," Grandpa continued. "Started with nothing but determination and the lessons my father taught me about honest work. Now it's worth more than I ever dreamed. But money reveals character, sometimes good, sometimes—" He paused, looking directly at the camera. "Not so good." I noticed Uncle James checking his Rolex, probably calculating how long before he could access his expected millions. He'd barely visited Grandpa twice in the last 5 years, always with investment proposals in hand. "The family videos I've been making this past year aren't just memories," Grandpa continued. "They're evidence of who came to visit, of who cared, of who tried to influence my decisions, of who threatened me." The room temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. Aunt Patricia's knuckles went white around her handbag. "My dear Lisa," Grandpa's image smiled, and I felt tears forming. "You thought you were just helping your old grandfather preserve memories, but you were helping me document everything. Every conversation, every manipulation attempt, every threat about nursing homes, every forged document they tried to make me sign." Rachel stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. We don't need to watch this. Robert just read the will." Mr. Henderson paused the video. Mr. Richardson specifically instructed that the entire video must be viewed before the will reading. Anyone who leaves forfeits their claim. Rachel sat back down. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide her rising panic. The video continued, Grandpa's voice stronger now. "I've watched this family tear itself apart over money they didn't earn. Plotting, scheming, lying, thinking I was too old to notice. But I noticed everything. And I recorded everything." He held up a thick folder. "This portfolio isn't just stocks and bonds. It's built on principles, honor, hard work, integrity, values this family seems to have forgotten, except for Lisa." My cousin's face had gone from panic to fury. She knew what was coming. She'd always known, deep down, that her games wouldn't work forever. "So yes," Grandpa continued, "Lisa gets the family videos. All of them, including the ones showing certain family members discussing power of attorney schemes. And Rachel?" He leaned closer to the camera. "The ones showing you and your mother practicing my signature might be of particular interest to the authorities." Aunt Patricia made a choking sound. Uncle James started calculating a different kind of number now, probably potential legal fees. As for the portfolio, Grandpa smiled. "Well, Robert will explain the details. Just remember, I may be gone, but the truth has a way of surviving, especially when it's in HD quality with backup copies in 3 different locations." The screen went dark. In the silence that followed, I could hear expensive watches ticking, marking the seconds until everything changed. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. "Now regarding the actual will." "Wait," Rachel stood again, her composure cracking. "We need to discuss this as a family. We already decided how this would go. Last week, we all agreed." "All except me," I interrupted quietly, "because none of you told me about this meeting. Just like none of you told me about the power of attorney schemes, or the forged documents, or the nursing home threats." "You don't understand," Aunt Patricia started, but I cut her off. "I understand perfectly. I understand why Grandpa insisted on teaching me how to use his new camera system. Why he wanted those security cameras in his study. why he made copies of everything. Rachel's carefully maintained facade cracked completely. You helped him spy on us? Your own family? No, I corrected her. I helped him protect himself from people who cared more about his money than his life. There's a difference. Mr. Henderson raised his voice slightly. If we could proceed with the actual will reading. Rachel sat down, but not before hissing, "This isn't over." Actually, I smiled, pulling out my phone and playing a video. Rachel and Aunt Patricia in Grandpa's study, practicing his signature while they thought he was napping. It is over. This is just the beginning. The will reading that followed was almost anticlimactic. The family videos, all of them, came to me, along with instructions for their appropriate use in ensuring justice. The $3.4 million portfolio was placed in a trust, with strict ethical guidelines for its use. Rachel's announcement about the family's decision died in her throat as Mr. Henderson revealed the trust's administrators, me and a panel of independent ethics experts. Her carefully orchestrated plan to seize control had just crashed into the reality of Grandpa's actual intentions. "This is a mistake," Uncle James protested. The family had an agreement. An agreement made without the actual owner of the estate, Mr. Henderson pointed out, and possibly under circumstances that could interest law enforcement. I watched my family members process their new reality. The millions they'd plotted to control would now serve the principles they'd ignored. The videos they dismissed as worthless would ensure they couldn't twist the truth. "There's more," Mr. Henderson continued. Mr. Richardson left specific instructions about how attempted challenges to the will should be handled. He pulled out another envelope. Any family member who contests these arrangements will trigger the immediate release of all relevant video evidence to authorities and media outlets. Rachel's perfect makeup couldn't hide her pallor now. Aunt Patricia looked like she might faint. Uncle James was probably calculating legal fees again. "You can't do this," Rachel whispered. "We're family." "Exactly," I replied. "We're family, and families are supposed to care about more than money. Grandpa gave us all chances to prove that. Some of us did. Some of us," I gestured to her designer morning outfit, "showed different priorities." Mr. Henderson began distributing copies of the will's details. I noticed my cousins and aunts and uncles all avoiding the section about the videos. They knew what those recordings contained. They knew their carefully constructed narratives were now just evidence of their true characters. "One last thing," Mr. Henderson added. Mr. Richardson left individual letters for each family member. He asked that they be read in private. I opened mine right there. "Dearest Lisa, you thought you were just helping your grandfather with technology, but you were helping me protect everything I spent my life building, not just the money, but the principles behind it. You showed me that at least one person in this family understood what really matters. The videos aren't just evidence, they're lessons. About choices. About character. About consequences. Use them wisely. Some people learn from seeing their true selves. Others never learn at all. You have both the memories and the means now. The portfolio isn't just money, it's an opportunity to do good, to build something meaningful, to show this family what they forgot about legacy. All my love, Grandpa." P.S. Check the video from last Christmas Eve. Rachel's practice signature session isn't the only surprise recorded that day. I looked up to see Rachel trying to discreetly read her own letter. From her expression, Grandpa had left her a very different message. "This meeting is concluded," Mr. Henderson announced, "unless anyone wishes to trigger the evidence release clause." The silence was deafening. One by one, my family members filed out, Rachel pausing at the door to glare at me one last time. "This isn't what family does," she spat. "No," I agreed, holding up my copy of the will. "This is what justice does." Grandpa just made sure they looked the same in the end. Left alone with Mr. Henderson, I finally asked the question that had been burning in my mind. Did he know, at the end, how bad it had gotten? The lawyer smiled sadly. "Your grandfather was sharper than they thought. He knew exactly what he was doing with those videos. The real question is, do you?" I patted my bag containing the hard drive of family videos. Evidence, memories, and justice all wrapped into digital files. "I know what matters," I said. "And thanks to Grandpa, I have proof of what doesn't." 1 week after the will reading, I sat in my apartment surrounded by hard drives and video files. Grandpa's meticulous documentation system was a testament to his foresight, each video carefully labeled, dated, and backed up in triplicate. Recording 147. Rachel and Patricia discussing power of attorney options, December 24th. Recording 183. James suggesting nursing home arrangements, January 15th. Recording 216. Family meeting excluding Lisa, February 28th. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing with messages from family members, ranging from threats to sudden attempts at reconciliation. Rachel. Those videos are family property. We'll sue. Aunt Patricia. Dear Lisa, perhaps we could discuss this over lunch? Your choice of restaurant. Uncle James. Be reasonable. We can make this work for everyone. I was reviewing Grandpa's Christmas Eve video, the one he specifically mentioned in his letter, when my doorbell rang. Through the security camera, a habit I'd learned from Grandpa, I saw Rachel standing there in her designer outfit, looking both angry and attempting to appear conciliatory. I know you're home, Lisa. We need to talk. I pressed the intercom. Everything that needs to be said was in Grandpa's will. Don't be childish, she snapped, her fake pleasantness evaporating. You have no idea how to manage that kind of money. The family can help. I pulled up recording 216 on my laptop. The secret family meeting where they planned to contest any will that didn't favor them. Like you helped plan to challenge Grandpa's will if it didn't go your way. Rachel's face went pale. You're watching those. Every single one. Including the Christmas Eve footage Grandpa specifically wanted me to see. Want to know what's on it. She fled to her waiting luxury car before I could finish. I turned back to the Christmas Eve video, understanding now why Grandpa had highlighted it. The footage showed Rachel and Aunt Patricia, not practicing signatures this time, but discussing their broader plan. Once we get control of the portfolio, Rachel was saying, we can restructure it, transfer everything to our managed accounts before anyone realizes. What about Lisa? Aunt Patricia asked. She gets some worthless home videos. By the time she figures anything out, the money will be gone. What they hadn't known was that Grandpa had been awake in his study, recording everything through his carefully placed cameras. He'd learned their entire scheme that Christmas Eve and spent his remaining months preparing his response. My phone buzzed again. A message from Mr. Henderson. Family members attempting to schedule emergency meeting, claiming new evidence about Mr. Richardson's mental state during will preparation. I replied with a clip from recording 235. Grandpa deliberately demonstrating his mental acuity for the camera, solving complex puzzles and discussing current events dated just days before the will signing. Sending this to their lawyers, I texted back, along with the footage of them discussing how to fake mental incompetence claims. The trust administration meeting was scheduled for next week. The independent ethics panel would review the portfolio's management guidelines designed to promote exactly the values my family had ignored. Another message popped up, this one from Uncle James. The family is prepared to offer you a settlement. Name your price. I sent back a single video clip, him discussing with Rachel how they'd handle me once they got control of the money. His next messages went straight to spam. Late that night, reviewing more footage, I found something unexpected. A video of Grandpa, recorded privately, speaking directly to me. Lisa, if you're watching this, they've probably started reaching out, offering deals, making threats, trying to manipulate you like they tried with me. But you're stronger than they think. You understand what I built this fortune to do. He held up a document, the trust guidelines I'd be administering. This money isn't meant to sit in accounts or fund shopping sprees. It's meant to build things, help people, create opportunities. Everything they wanted to steal, you'll use to make a difference. The video continued with detailed instructions about investment strategies and ethical guidelines. Grandpa had left nothing to chance. A final message came in before midnight from Rachel's husband, Tom. She's planning something. Be careful. Not everyone agrees with what they did to your grandfather. I copied another set of videos to a secure cloud location. Rachel might be planning something, but Grandpa had taught me well about keeping evidence safe. The next morning, my lawyer called. They're claiming the videos were edited. They want to challenge their authenticity. I smiled, remembering Grandpa's lessons about backup plans. Check the trust documents. Paragraph 23. There was a pause as she flipped pages. Oh, cleverly done. He had everything authenticated by digital forensics experts before he died. Time-stamped and verified. Grandpa knew they'd try something like this, I explained. He spent his last months closing every loophole they might use. Another call came in, the ethics panel chairman. The first trust project needed approval. A scholarship program for underprivileged students, focusing on business ethics and responsible wealth management. Rachel would hate it, using her millions to teach others the lessons she refused to learn. That evening, I found one final video from Grandpa, labeled simply "Watch Last." Lisa, by now they've probably shown their true colors again, trying to fight the will, challenge the videos, buy you off. But remember, this isn't about punishment, it's about legacy. He smiled, looking more peaceful than I'd seen him in years. The portfolio will grow, the trust will help people, and maybe, just maybe, seeing money used for good will teach them what really matters. If not, he shrugged, at least we tried. A knock at my door interrupted the video. The security camera showed Tom, Rachel's husband, looking nervous. "She's filed papers," he said when I let him in. "Claims she has evidence you manipulated Grandpa into changing his will." I pulled up recording 216 again, the secret family meeting. I fast-forwarded to Rachel describing her own manipulation attempts. Tom watched, his face growing darker. "They don't know you have this. They don't know what any of the videos show," I explained. "They were too busy plotting to pay attention to Grandpa's silly recording hobby." Rachel's spiraling, Tom admitted. The idea of losing control of the money, she can't handle it. Patricia's worse. I showed him the Trust's first approved project, the scholarship program. "This is what the money's for now, actually helping people." He stared at the proposal for a long moment. "This is what your grandfather wanted all along, wasn't it? Not just preserving wealth, but using it right." "Now you understand why he had to record everything," I said. "He knew they'd try to stop this." My phone buzzed. Another message from Mr. Henderson. "They filed an emergency injunction. Want to freeze the trust." I forwarded him recording 216, plus the Christmas Eve footage. "Send them this. Remind them about paragraph 8 of the will. The paragraph that would trigger public release of all videos if they pursued legal action." Tom read the message over my shoulder. "They're not going to stop, you know. Rachel, Patricia, James, they've convinced themselves they deserve that money." "I know," I said, thinking of Grandpa's final video message. "But they can't fight the truth, especially when it's in HD." 3 months after the will reading, I sat in the Trust's newly established office reviewing the impact of our first initiatives. The scholarship program had already selected 20 recipients, each with a compelling story about wanting to learn ethical business practices. It felt like Grandpa was smiling somewhere. The family's reaction had evolved from outright hostility to a more insidious approach. Rachel had started attending charity events, trying to position herself as the public face of the Richardson legacy. Aunt Patricia had begun a whisper campaign about my mental stability. Uncle James was still trying to find legal loopholes. But Grandpa's preparation was flawless. Every attack they launched met a video counter-proof. Every legal challenge faced documented evidence of their own misconduct. "Ms. Richardson," my assistant interrupted my thoughts. "The ethics panel is ready for today's meeting, and your cousin Rachel is in the lobby again." I pulled up the lobby security feed. Rachel stood there in what I recognized as her business negotiation outfit, the one she wore when trying to intimidate people. "Send her up," I decided, "and start recording Protocol Alpha." Grandpa had taught me well. Every meeting now was documented, just like he'd done. Rachel swept into my office, taking in the simple but professional decor with barely concealed disdain. "Still playing business executive, I see. The Trust's returns are up 12% this quarter," I replied calmly, while maintaining strict ethical investment guidelines. "Would you like to see the reports?" "Cut the act, Lisa," she snapped. "This little power play has gone on long enough. The family is suffering." I pulled up the Trust's latest project on my screen, a business incubator for underprivileged entrepreneurs. Funny, these families seem to be thriving with the opportunities they're getting. "That money was meant for us." Rachel's composure cracked. "Not some charity cases." "Actually," I said, playing Grandpa's video statement about his intentions, "it was meant for exactly this." She flinched at Grandpa's voice. "Turn that off." "Why?" "Afraid to face the truth again. Like the truth about the Christmas Eve meeting." Rachel's face went pale. "You've watched that." "I've watched everything. including your conversation last week with the private investigator you hired to dig up dirt on me. High-definition security cameras, Rachel. Another lesson from Grandpa. Her expression shifted from shock to calculation. What will it take? Name your price to end this charade. It's not a charade, I said, gesturing to the wall of scholarship recipient photos. This is real impact, real change, real legacy. Legacy, she laughed bitterly. You're destroying the family's legacy. No, I corrected her, I'm building the legacy Grandpa actually wanted. The one you were too busy plotting to notice. My phone buzzed. A message from Tom. Rachel hired new lawyers, planning to challenge trust administration. I turned back to my cousin. Before you waste more money on lawyers, remember paragraph 8. Every legal challenge triggers more video releases. You're bluffing, she said, but uncertainty flickered in her eyes. I played another clip, her and Aunt Patricia discussing their plans to declare Grandpa mentally incompetent if the will didn't favor them. Still think I'm bluffing. The ethics panel was waiting, but I had one more thing to show her. I pulled up the trust's financial reports. See these returns? They're higher than what your restructuring plan would have achieved. Ethical investment works, Rachel. Grandpa knew that. This isn't over, she said, standing to leave. Actually, it is. Check your email. The panel just approved our next project, a documentary about ethical wealth management. Guess what footage we're using as case studies? Rachel fled, but not before I saw real fear in her eyes. Not fear of losing money, but fear of the truth being exposed. Later that day, Tom called. She's meeting with the family tonight. They're desperate. I know, I said, watching the trust's latest impact reports generate. But they can't fight this anymore. The truth isn't just in the videos, it's in the results we're achieving. My assistant brought in the latest scholarship applications, stories of hope, ambition, and ethical dreams. This was Grandpa's real legacy, not the millions Rachel wanted to control, but the impact those millions could have when used right. A final email came in before day's end from Mr. Henderson. Family filed to withdraw all legal challenges. Seems they finally watched the Christmas Eve video. I smiled, remembering Grandpa's words from his last recording. Money reveals character, but it can also transform it. Sometimes through inspiration, sometimes through consequences. Rachel and the others had chosen their consequences, now they had to live with them. Opening my laptop, I started the day's final recording, Trust Impact Report, Day 90. The Richardson legacy continues, not through power or control, but through positive change. Just like you wanted, Grandpa. Because in the end, the most valuable inheritance wasn't the millions in the portfolio. It was the wisdom to use them right. And thanks to Grandpa's foresight, every moment of that lesson was captured in perfect, undeniable clarity. The true power wasn't in the money. It was in the truth. And the truth, especially in high definition, has a way of winning in the end. 1 year to the day after Grandpa's will reading, I stood in the auditorium of the newly established Richardson Center for Business Ethics, watching the first class of scholarship recipients graduate, 20 young faces, each carrying forward the real legacy Grandpa had envisioned. The family had finally gone quiet. Rachel's last attempt to challenge the trust had backfired spectacularly when the ethics panel voted to include her manipulation attempts as a case study in their What Not to Do business course. Aunt Patricia had moved to Florida, claiming the family drama was affecting her health. Uncle James had surprisingly been the first to break ranks. I watched all the videos he told me last week, including the ones of myself. I didn't like what I saw. He'd started volunteering at the center, sharing his experience as a cautionary tale. Redemption wasn't just for the scholarship recipients, it seemed. The trust had grown to $4.2 million through ethical investments, funding 3 major initiatives: the scholarship program, the business incubator, the ethics education center. Each project came with strict ethical guidelines and complete transparency. Everything recorded, everything documented. Grandpa's lessons lived on. Tom had filed for divorce from Rachel, citing her moral bankruptcy as the final straw. He now sat on the ethics panel, bringing valuable insight into how wealth could corrupt and how to prevent it. Ms. Richardson, one of the graduating students, approached. I wanted to thank you, not just for the scholarship, but for showing us how to do business the right way. I smiled, hearing Grandpa's words echo. Money reveals character, but it can also build it. My phone buzzed. A message from Rachel, her first in months. Saw the center's success in the business journal. Maybe I was wrong. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. The truth had finally started to sink in. The center's main hall featured a wall of screens, each playing key moments from Grandpa's video legacy. Not the gotcha moments over the family schemes, but his wisdom about wealth, responsibility, and ethical business. The students called it the Richardson Principles in Action. Recording daily impact, I spoke into my tablet, maintaining Grandpa's documentation habit. Year 1 complete. 20 graduates, 15 new businesses launched, 0 ethical violations. The legacy grows stronger. Later that evening, alone in my office, I played the Christmas Eve video one last time. Not the part with Rachel and Patricia's scheming, but the part they never knew existed. Grandpa's quiet smile as he watched me help him set up the camera system. "This one's special," he'd said. "This one's going to change everything." He was right. It had changed everything. Not through revenge or exposure, but through transformation. The videos hadn't just preserved truth. They created new truths, better ones. The Trust's next project was already approved. A documentary series about ethical wealth transformation, featuring real stories of change and redemption. Uncle James would be the first episode. Rachel's story might even make it in someday, if she continued her baby steps toward understanding. My final recording for the day was simple. "Grandpa, we did it. We turned your videos into vision, your wealth into wisdom. The family might not be what you hoped, but your legacy is exactly what you planned. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't exposure, it's excellence. And excellence, especially when recorded in high definition, has a way of changing everything."